Dallas Famous podcast is supported by the Mullen & Mullen Music Project. The Music Project was created by Mullen & Mullen Injury Law Firm to champion the independent music scene in North Texas. I'm Andrew Sherman. I'm a Texas transplant who has always been in pursuit of art as a career. I've played in bands, pursued an acting career in Hollywood, but I found it behind the lens of a camera here in Dallas, Texas. I was born in New York, I've lived in Chicago, Los Angeles, Austin, but I love Dallas. There's a magical artistic scene in Dallas that mostly goes unnoticed to the outside world. This podcast is focused on what makes it so special and the people who make it thrive artistically. If you don't live here, and even if you do, you might not have heard of them. This is the Dallas Famous Podcast.
So who you gonna be? Who you gonna be when you're all grown up? Who you gonna be? Who you gonna be when you're all for us? Yeah.
This week on the Dallas Famous Podcast, we're joined by Scott Davis and Courtney Wright of State Fair Records, the Dallas label that's been not so quietly shaping the sound of the city for over a decade. Scott and Courtney share the story behind the label, how they built a tight-knit creative community, and what it takes to keep independent music thriving in North Texas and beyond. It's a really good talk with a lot of great info, so stick around. Here it is. We are back at the Deep Ellum Community Center. We have got the State Fair Records royalties, Scott Davis and Courtney Wright, and thanks for coming down.
Oh,
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah. We should say that exactly at the same time. Hold on a second. I'm not just happy to be here. I'm honored to be here. I looked at the list of people that you had previously on your show. I know you, and I kind of know what you're trying to accomplish, and I'm truly honored to be sitting in this chair right now. Right on.
You guys absolutely belong to belong on the show. You're one of the, there's a handful of record labels in town, but I feel like at this point you're really the front runners. You seem to put a lot of care into your artists, and it used to be just Americana, and it's kind of expanded past that at this point, right?
Actually, it's and I'll let Courtney dive in here. Sorry, I'm a little jacked up on caffeine. It used to be a very common misconception. But the truth of the matter is like the second record we put out was a straight up punk. It was the band Upsetting that started out as Teenage Sex, and we decided that we couldn't work out search engine optimization for a band called Teenage Sex. So we encouraged them to change their name, and I'm pretty sure the Dallas Observer picked that as, the best album for that year. And they were, over at the Nines, they had a little consortium that they did, and we were happy they were doing it, but they actually got Best Record Label. So Sub-Sahara and a bunch of other bands that were sort of in that group that we were happy to help promote, like we do currently with Elevated Busking, which is Revelers Hall. Those guys were straight up punk. What our original business model was essentially was to rule out nothing. So a Southern major. If you got chops, come and play music and we'll see where it lands. It just turned out that Americana was sort of wildly popular, and you want to catch growth markets, and that was a growth market. And some of the artists that we liked really lent themselves to that. Some of these guys were, one day Kenny Rogers was one thing and one day Kenny Rogers was something totally different.
Right.
Well, same applied to guys walking through our door at that time. And we love Americana. Americana music is really very Texas. I always joked and said it's essentially rock and roll with a banjo. But, replace that electric guitar with a banjo and you got Americana. But yes, we're certainly proud of that part of our history, but I always like to point out the fact that there was so many things that in the beginning that we were doing that were pretty much a departure from that.
I feel like once I came on in 2018, that was kind of the Americana era from 2018 to about 2021, 2022. And of course, we still do Americana records beyond that, but we got really into Americana Fest, and we're doing showcases there every year starting in 2018. And yeah, it was a great time, I feel like.
Well, so I want to know about you guys and about State Fair. So let's do a quick history of each of you. First of all, where did you start and how did you get to Dallas, or did you start in Dallas, or Scott?
Oh, was born 5 blocks from here at Baylor Hospital.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is home. And State Fair Records actually, it got their name. I was sitting with Stephen Morvay, who plays in Clubwood, and we played in a band together called Homespun Remedies, and I said, I want to be a record mogul. And essentially he said, "You're an idiot." I said, "Okay, well, you're probably right about that, but I still want to be a record mogul." And we were kind of kicking around names, and it's funny, musicians will make up band names, and that's just sort of part of regular banter, that firsthand.
Oh, yeah, many band names that never existed. Yeah. Sure.
And it's wild because you be having drinks and you go, "I call that one. That's a pretty cool band name." And I lived at Southside at the time, and I looked out the window and I could see the Texas Star. And I used to play out there in the parade. I played for 10 years straight, every single night at the State Fair. And
what do you play?
State Fair. I play a lot of different stuff, but that was harmonica. I played harmonica in the Shrine Band.
Okay,
I'm a Shriner. I wear a fez, and
yeah,
I own
maybe
a
even saw you at one of because I used to work at events at the fair.
Oh, right on. Okay.
Yeah.
And I went to State Fair Records, and he actually he does branding and marketing and so on. He goes, "Yeah, that's a bad name." A little bit like Teenage Sex was not a great name. And he said, "You're going to be confused with the State Fair." And I don't know, the wife came out, she had the same idea. There were more than one artist that thought, okay, that's kind of an okay thing. And it just stuck. It was, as a matter of fact, I might actually have to throw props towards the wife, who, by the way, I'd like to take this moment in life to say thank you, because she has put up with so much for Courtney and I to be sitting here right now. I mean, she has been a complete and total sport. But and that was sort of the beginning. I played in the North Texas Caledonian Pipe and Drum Corps for a bit. I was a solo piper playing bagpipes for the Scottish Rite. I have actually circled back around. I do that now, and then just different things in different bands and session stuff, studio stuff. I played on the script. I shouldn't tell that story, but I did. I made up a nom de plume, and I'm about to bust myself out. But I played a bit on the Scribner's record, which we're going to put out later in this year.
Oh, cool.
So, but
you're playing bagpipes on that, or
I played harmonica.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's okay. Those are two very different specific instruments, but that's cool. I mean, harmonica is pretty fun too. I just had a good time with those.
It's a blast.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, if you have a transmitter, you can do sound check while sitting at the bar. So you just go, "Is this my mic?" You walk up eventually and go, "Is this my microphone?" It's a great instrument.
I saw Sugar Blue in a blues club in Chicago, and the whole band is playing for 10 minutes, and then you're like, "Where's Sugar Blue? Where's the guy? Where is he?" And then you hear it, and he's at the end of the bar, basically hitting on some woman playing harmonica with his mic. That's how he introduced himself. You raised your hand. Something you've done.
It was not a woman. But I do know most bartenders in this town. So it was
Chicago. It's okay. It's a different city. Courtney, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So let's just start. Where are you from? How did you get to Dallas?
So I grew up in Lancaster, Texas, south of Dallas. My parents still live there and have since the 80s. So I grew up there. I went to school downtown Dallas, First Baptist Academy. Actually, fun fact, in my graduating class are 3 or 4 Texas gentlemen. Oh, really? We all went to the same high school.
Oh, funny.
So many people that went to my high school are musicians in the Dallas scene. So really funny that we all kind of grew up together and, came back together like this.
Yeah. Were you, cause I see that you majored in recreation and parks, and that's not music related, obviously. No. So before we get to that, what was your experience growing up with these other musicians, and how did that affect you personally?
So I don't have a huge, my parents took, I think my first concert was Oak Ridge Boys, before I was 1. My parents took me to a lot of little concerts like that growing up, but my parents aren't musicians. I don't really have that kind of background, but kind of later, late high school is when I started getting more into music, and I started playing guitar a little bit. I don't play out, but I play a little bit of guitar. And then college, I kind of just kept learning guitar and like going to shows, things like that. And then senior year of college, I met Nathan, re-met him. He actually went to to the same school in junior high. So like his 6th to 8th grade year was my 7th to 9th grade year.
Okay.
So like I knew who he was, but we didn't like hang out or really.
Sure.
He always says we were in different crowds because he was wearing eyeliner and I was a cheerleader. So
He was wearing eyeliner? Was he like a punk? Or,
Yes,
okay,
totally.
yeah, goth or something. Yeah.
but anyway,
Nathan Wells, by the way.
yes, Nathan Mongo Wells. Senior year of college, kind of just kept going to shows, and I just loved music growing up. But as far as the major goes, you can like really kind of tailor it to how you want it in that major. So there's like 4 different departments, and I kind of focused a lot on like the tourism side, and also they had festivals and events classes. So in a weird way, it kind of like ties in.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I wouldn't have seen that coming, but that's cool.
So I did like a lot of different like I got my event management certification and focused on like the festival side. And I worked like a couple festivals back then. And, so yeah, and of course, like getting together with Nathan kind of kicked off like me getting in the scene.
Right, because when you're dating a musician, you're basically in the band in a lot of ways.
And so we like lived in Bryan College Station for a while because he was finishing out college at A&M, and I had already graduated, and we moved back to Dallas in like 2017, and I started working for Artist Uprising. And they were like working on an editorial at the time, and we were kind of like involved in the scene. It was like all arts, like a lot of painters and artists and things like that, but we kind of started out there, and then I started working at Belmont Hotel.
Right. Oh,
before
okay. God, I missed that place.
I know.
Everybody does, actually, right?
It was the best place. And I feel bad for anyone that didn't get to experience like the scene there for a good minute. But I was there for about 6 months in like 2017, 2018. And then after that, I met Trey Johnson at a show in Club Dada. And we just kind of hit it off. And I was like, I want to work more in the music scene. And I'm like really good at organizing and adminning and planning, and that was kind of what they were looking for at the time. And not long after that, I met Scott and just kind of gradually started going to the office, and that's
actually you have to backtrack. I mean,
Yeah.
Trey Johnson and Paul Williams and I started State Fair Records, so there's that.
Yeah.
And then the fact of the matter is I'd been kind of coming in the office and going from the office, and one day I just looked at Trey and I said, that girl with the red hair, who is that? He goes, she works here now. Does she have a name? Shall I talk to her? So, yeah.
Oh, that's great. You're just like, okay, this person's just in our office now.
Courtney's very quiet. I mean, I have to kind of pry her out to do stuff like this. I don't know if you notice. I don't
I'm a
mind
thinker.
talking at all. But
You're a thinker.
a deep thinker.
And you hate
yes.
talking. We've got that part already. Well, so what was State Fair Records before Courtney showed up? Like, what was from the beginning till that point look like?
Well, a couple of twists and turns aside, I mean, we actually started out at Southside on Lamar. And, I loved living there. You and I were talking about John Berman and the connection there. And our kids played in a band together. And that was at Booker T. Washington. They all went to Arts Magnet. So, I needed to be close to Arts Magnet, and I moved, and I realized that if I needed a drummer, I went down the hall and there was a drummer. If I needed a vocalist or a guitar player, and like my next door neighbor was Liz Michael, and she was on Friday Night Lights and
Yeah.
she's on Broadway and
Dallas Famous podcast.
Yes, she was. And for all the right reasons, by the way, if you look it up, we made her Christmas record. She's
cool.
just insanely
God, it's-
talented.
yeah.
And it was really, that was the building. And Jack Matthews, a wonderful human being. Every year there's an award given to people that contribute to the arts in Dallas. And I was somehow tapped to help with that. And I like Jack a lot. And I said, I think Jack Matthews really should be up for this award. And the caveat was, I was like, well, he'll let artists live there for free. And he would, when I finally told him that, by the way, he did win the award. They gave it to him. He's like, please tell me you didn't tell artists they could live in my... So I was like, I didn't exactly tell him that, but... you got Erica Badu's my neighbor, I don't know what to tell people. She was, you brought her up, you did what you did. And that award, I think, still goes to 3 people. He was certainly deserving of it. But, I mean, when you want to close the loop on how did this happen, I think, location is a huge factor. Now, the downtown, I think we all know, I'm not going to say it's ran its course or whatever. It just became a logistic problem. It is we've had such a huge influx of my, friends from California and my friends from Pennsylvania and my friends from New York. And I got no problem. Texas is a huge state. That's great. Y'all come here. That's wonderful. But I still have to be able to get from one spot to another. And I realized that this is not going to get better. So I went ahead and as far as like Booker T and the Arts Magnet goes, that had run its course. Sid had gone to college, and I called my old neighbor, and when I first met him, I still get a hard time from my wife about this. Was I asked him when he was going to move out of my house, because he built this house is exactly like my dream home, and we're going to leave his name out. That way I don't have a future lawsuit. But I called him one day and I said, hey, I wasn't joking. I mean, I'd love to buy your house from you, and I think it's time probably for me to move out of Southside. And he said, well, I'm a grandfather and I'm building a house. And I ended up buying the house across the street from where I used to live before I moved downtown. Huh. So we ended up partnering with Mark Menza and Menza Music, and we had the studio in the Design District, the very north part of the Design District. And we didn't just limit ourselves to using that studio. I mean, we used, Modern and Audio Dallas and all these places to make records. But it was a really nice home base. It was a great place where we could go and create. And sadly, I mean, the February was the end of that. And right now I'm finishing out another studio in a building that's actually behind my house. But as far as music walking through the door, that was incredibly, incredibly organic. I can't say enough nice things about guys like John Pedigo, an amazing producer I talked to yesterday. I'm going to go see his new studio next week. And this community of musicians. And, I will say this. I'm going to say a bunch of nice stuff about my colleague, Courtney. The fact of the matter is, when her and Nathan showed up, I keep wanting to call him Mongo Wells. but when they showed up, they had a built-in music scene. They didn't realize it. We certainly recognized it, but Alejandro Escovedo, that was a very good friend of yours, and that's actually, he's in the Library of Congress. I mean, that's an important guy.
That's a big deal, yeah.
That's kind of important.
He was living at the Belmont at the time that I was working there.
He was what?
Living at the Belmont.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that was maybe a fact I could have included in this story.
That's how I knew him.
In this incredibly lengthy story I've decided to spin.
He and his wife are lovely people.
He says the same about you, actually. Well, not the wife part, but you know what I mean. So it really kind of constructed on its own. Now, I'm not going to lie, man. I was an Ottoman Turks fan from way back. My daughter actually said, "You got to hear this band," and it was Nathan and company, and they burned it down then. They burned it down now. But there was a core group of friends, and they all known each other for a very long time, and we just started putting out records in that in that environment under the guise of let's make a music scene, whether it's Laurel Canyon or what happened in Austin or whatever. Why can't that be Dallas?
Yeah.
Why? And as a matter of fact, from 11 years ago, February when we started till now, it looks a lot more like a very cohesive music scene than it used to.
Yeah.
It was scattershot. Dallas, I'm not going to say that we had bad fans. What we had was bad parking.
Oh, wow. I've never heard anyone put it like that.
The Granada is the Granada in a lot of ways because the Granada provided a place to park. I've been coming down here from unsafe to safe to insane to insanely unsafe to back to and the real issue is the place where this scene kind of galvanized, it was just difficult. So what we started trying to do was cast a larger net, and I got to hand it to the guys that run the Kessler and run the Longhorn Ballroom. I've said for years, the Longhorn Ballroom is the antithesis. This is the epicenter. This is where it should be. And when I grew up, Dewey Groom and the Dewey Groom Orchestra, they were a thing that came on after wrestling. I'm an old guy. And I can remember Dewey standing behind a giant microphone and then dropping the needle on a record and it going, and then the record would start playing and Dewey wouldn't move, but it was him doing a music video. That was how a music video started in Dallas. So, the simple question is, well, how did all this come together? You know what? Hell if I know. The truth of the matter is it just did. And, I was looking at other people that had this same opportunity because you mentioned other record labels. There are other record labels in Dallas. And Idol Records does an amazing job. And Kirtland Records did an amazing job. And you had Tammy Thompson on your show, and Tammy's a genius in no uncertain terms. She's brilliant. I mean, period. And we had an opportunity to work under her tutelage for a good bit. So if you want to know, the components were all there, but somehow they just managed in a way to walk through our door and provide longevity. And I'm going to toot our own horn here. I mean, we turn out a really, really good product. I don't want to reduce it to a product, but at the end of the day, either you can kind of make enough money doing this where you can continue to do this, or you don't. And all these people had skill sets, and even Maureen was on your show, Maureen Womack. Okay. Maureen was an institution in the beginning, and it was simply because Trey taught her kids music, and she decided this would be a cool thing. Courtney and I were sitting one day doing a bid to the State Fair because, she books the acts. The State Fair Records gets credit for it, but let's face it, I mean, she books the acts for the State Fair. And she said, well, should we use my degree as for this bid? And I'm like, honestly, what is your degree in? And she described it, and I just hit the backspace button essentially and removed myself from the bid and went in and go, okay, the girl from Texas A&M that actually has amusement park entertainment as her resume. We just added that to the resume. And I'd love to say it was by design, but it was a little bit accidental and a little bit because I think God might love me.
It was kind of a full circle moment because my internship before I graduated was at Dallas Parks and Rec department. And at the time they had like a department of the whole thing that was Fair Park. And I don't know if they still do, but so I spent some time at Fair Park during my internship and learning about it and just seeing how it's associated with the Dallas Parks and Rec. And so, yeah, now that we spend 24 plus days there a year, it's pretty funny.
So you came up with the name Not Connect just because you saw the State Fair. At what point did you come together with the State Fair, the actual State Fair?
2019, right?
Okay, if we're going to put a date on it, yeah, that would be really, really close. But the Vandaliers were standing on the stage at the Granada Theater, and Jason Hayes come running out of the crowd, and he goes, "You're Scott Davis with State Fair Records, right?" And it was loud, and I was like, "Yes, I am." And he said, "I want to talk to you about something." And what they wanted to do was put on a music festival. And I saw, Dallas say at Entertainment Dallas, the awards.
Dallas
Dallas
Entertainment
Thank
Awards.
you.
Uh-huh.
I was going to get it backwards. But it finally showed up as a music festival, and that was their goal from
That
that day
was
forward.
a big moment.
What they did was they'd book a stage, and they'd like a band to come and play on that stage, like 30-minute sets, 6-8 times a day, every single day.
Like Great America or something.
Yeah, it was hard on the band, and it was definitely hard on the vendors, because they told me that after they went, wow, this is different than yesterday. And I was like, yeah. Anyway,
Oh God, I didn't think about that. Like hearing the same song as you're working, like with the same band. Like
it was,
yeah.
they gave me a free Coke.
You've made it. I'm getting free stuff at the fair. That's not easy to do.
We got to say thank you to Evan Tate, too, because he
Evan Tate's the
suggested
best.
us
Yes.
to Jason Hayes.
Here.
And then I remember eating at Good Friend Package Co., and we had that meeting, and that's where it all started. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I wasn't like, it wasn't on my radar. I wasn't even here like until 2016. But then I just assumed you guys. I glad I could ask you that in person, because I was never clear on how that all came together. But it just was a happy coincidence, essentially. Not
Yeah.
a coincidence. They saw that you had quality, and they were like, "This, they can take care of this for us."
Yeah, 2019 was when they asked us. It was kind of like half booked, and that was when I think they were trying to change things up, like you were saying. They wanted to make it more festival type, and they reached out and asked if we could like finish out the booking for that year, and then 2020 happened. We were still involved that year, but on a smaller scale, and from then on, it's just been,
Oh yeah, and my buddy Jackson Butt is your guy, right? yeah. I love that dude. I wish he still lived here. I have questions from stuff we've covered. You wanted to be a record mogul, but like, why did you want a record? What was the real reason for wanting a record label, or what was your catalyst for it?
It largely had to do with the fact that when we got a decent artist in this town, we had somebody that had skills. They were looking for a place to, I don't know if exploit is a good word, but a way to capitalize on their career. And it wasn't Dallas. Well, arguably right now, it kind of depends who likes to do math, but arguably we're close to being the third largest market in the U.S.
Right.
And I just kind of kept seeing that spotlight go elsewhere. I mean, a young man, he's not as young as he was, but Wade Kofer. Wade Kofer is one of the best guitar players I've ever seen in my entire life. He's got a wonderful voice. He's a great songwriter. And one day he looked up and he essentially told me goodbye, and he went to Nashville to work at Carter's, being a luthier for guitar players that weren't as good as him. And I don't mean any just to disparage Nashville musicians, but the fact of the matter is, I went, wow, man, that's unbelievable. Why is it like this? Why my partner Trey Johnson was a musical genius and sort of did well in Dallas, and they were the exception to the rule. And he played with Chris Holt, and Chris Holt is now an Eagle.
Yeah.
But when I look like Rhett Miller, the old 97s, if it wouldn't have been for Chicago, the old 97s would have flamed out. They had a huge fan base in Chicago. And I thought, okay, I'm not bad at marketing, actually. I kind of can recognize what is going to sell. I can kind of figure out who wants to buy that. I can kind of figure out how to make this happen. And all I really wanted to do was kind of keep them coming back to home base. And essentially now you can't have somebody in the music industry with autonomy. I mean, you either have to have a group of people that are super happy about what they're doing and really highly creative, and then use each component of this, because the sum of the parts is much greater than each part. It depends how you want to look at it. It's nice that there is a Selena Gomez, but the first thing she did was take off. It's nice that she exists. And we didn't have to do that. We actually, if we could stand shoulder to shoulder and create here, then we could put a spotlight on here. And between Dallas and Fort Worth, we actually have more tourism than Orlando. And those are, you can Google search me and you can double check that. And a lot of that has to do with, we have a lot of sports that happen here. But the fact is that people are coming and going and people are moving here. In a lot of ways, And I mentioned my friends from California. My friends from California are really looking for what their identity is now. California was real clear cut. But when you show up here, you know, it's a little bit of culture shock, you know.
Yes.
It's boots and hats and, you know, a punk scene, like literally that iconic sign from the Longhorn Ballroom, which I'll throw props again, that said Sex Pistols and Merle Haggard.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to Sex Pistols and Merle Haggard. If you want to figure out, you know, if you want to figure out what that is, then I'm okay helping define that because I went to those shows. I mean, I'm an old dude. That was the right age for me. And it made sense. And I thought, well, if we could circle back around to this and put the pieces together, then we could create a scene for my town. I have a lot of pride in my state and in my town. And, you know, I watched what Austin did and I watched what some of these other music scenes did. And I just went, you know, there should be a Dallas sound. There's not, what is the definition of the sound of Dallas? What is the definition of the sound of Fort Worth? You know, for that matter, Denton or Waco. I mean, there are more cracking musicians in Denton than most places on this planet.
Yeah,
I mean, like really, really solid musicians. And now I can go to I can go to Revelers Hall and I can tell you what Denton sounds like. You know, I can tell you right in the middle of a city center, that's what Denton sounds like. Those guys are, you know, that's that scene.
Sound,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
So it was a passion, you know, it wasn't so much I thought I was going to get rich doing it. As a matter of fact, I'm actually shocked I'm still doing it now.
Yeah.
So
you just passed 10 years last year, right?
February was 11 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's amazing. 11 years. Okay, great. Courtney, I'm going to ask you something that's probably a little bit more for the average person, because it used to be like, oh, you got a record deal. Like, what does that? It meant something different than it means now. So I guess, what does it mean now, and what does it mean with the State Fair specifically?
Oof, that's a big question.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Gosh. Do you mean in like terms of, or like what does it look like when we release an album, or like?
Well, like an artist, like John 22 just got a record deal at 59, which is cool, but he was like, it's not like when you were in the 90s and you got a record deal and you got a whole bunch of money and you got this and then it wasn't even your money, blah, blah, blah. So
right.
Like because of streaming, everything's changed. So I like one thing I know about you guys is when you have an artist, you take care of them. You're not just, okay, give us your music, we'll promote it, don't come to the office. Like that's not you guys. Right. So I guess tell us what you are is a better way to ask it.
I mean, the first word that kind of came to mind when you asked that was support. Like, I feel like we do the best we can to support our artists, and I can't say I know exactly how like your typical record label runs, but I imagine it's a bit different from what we do. But yeah, because, you know, I feel like we kind of like dabble in like management and dabble a little bit in booking and not even like on purpose or, you know, the opposite of that. It just kind of happens. Like we want to help our artists and we take a lot of our time to, you know, try and figure out what's best for them, find opportunities for them. I mean, usually when we take on an artist, we try to figure out, one of the first things we do is like branding. We're like, do you already have a brand? Or do you need help developing it, figuring it out? And we have this like brand document that we send people, or like artists that we're working with. And we just ask like, hey, what do you think your music like feels like, tastes like, smells like, you know, like what brands would you or want to work with, or sponsorships you would want, like things like that. That's kind of like where we start things out. And from there, it's like, what is the timeline going to look like? And when do you want to release this? Like, do we have enough time? We created kind of this timeline Bible that I swear we never go by, but
you made the rules to break them.
You know,
yeah.
it's like a year-long thing. That's ideal. Like, you know, 12 months before you release, you're like recording, mastering, like, you know, getting it done pretty much. But it's usually like maybe 5 or 6 months or something like that, which is not always the best idea. But, you know, we always try to consider like what the artist wants too. Like, I know Scott always makes a joke, like please don't release anything else on your birthday. Like everyone wants to do something on their birthday, and we're like, okay, if you really want to, but and usually that's like
a
a few
thing,
months away or something.
Oh, right. It's like next week.
Yeah. But
I never thought about it. Like, oh, okay, yeah. I guess it's significant to an artist, personally.
Yeah, and I totally get it. Like, nothing's wrong with that. But yeah, a big thing of what we do is trying to build the team, PR, radio, and, you know, ask the questions like, do they need like PR, or could we do it in-house, or do they need radio, or do we need to get this radio programmer from Nashville that we love? Like, who works best with this artist, and what team makes the most sense?
That actually is the answer. What we do is we put together a team of people that we feel like is going to promote that act the best. And, you know, when you say, what do other record labels do? As a general rule, they ask you about your social media numbers, and then they do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
That sounds familiar, actually.
Yeah, I mean, like fake social media numbers do nothing. Courtney sits down and she calls everybody that does radio promotion. She calls everybody that does in-studio promotion, which is incredibly important, and a lot of people kind of overlook that. And, you know, we try to go and tap the distributor and say, which, you know, we're distributed by Sony. God bless the nice people at Sony. But, you know, and say, listen, we need these guys on playlists, so on and so forth. I mean, a week ago, we were all talking to Mitch Ballard at BMI, and, you know, we kind of let him know what's going on. And if he's got people that are important to BMI to at least kind of be moved to the front of the line, then we listen to that. And if we've got people that we need BMI helping us with, same deal. ASCAP is a wonderful company to deal with. You know, we got a lot of artists that are on that, and that's a wonderful advocacy group. But it actually requires picking up the phone and making a phone call. We do. Courtney was saying, you know, well, we go to Nashville to Americana Fest, and people kind of come to us and they go, well, how can you guys do this? And we go, how can you not? You know, we don't understand. I mean, if you want to guarantee failure, then do nothing, because you will definitely fail.
Were you saying like they're questioning it because like how are you affording that? Is that what they mean? Or, like,
well, it's definitely not free, but at the same time, yeah, that's what they mean.
Yeah,
that's what they mean.
Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, there's a bottom line for everyone, and you know, some people stick to that, or you know,
every roll of the dice has a chance of winning. I'll tell you the one thing, that if you never roll them, you never win.
Sure.
It's that's it. You don't put the chips on the table. You don't give it a try. And it's not the first record. That's the other thing. It takes a second. You know, if you have an artist that you feel like has the potential, then work out a 3-record deal, promote the first 2 records, get them out in front of people that you know. And I will sing the old 97's praises, because they have been in our camp. If you don't mind me just picking on one person, Courtney, I am. I'm going to say those guys will take our artist out. And they'll do it predicated completely on prowess, on talent. And they're not expecting a draw, you know. Mm-hmm. By the way, if somebody wants to put their record out on their birthday, and their birthday for some reason creates a draw, I'm not against it. But we're kind of, you know, that's a birthday party. No, man. Right. No, we don't want to throw you a birthday party. We want a record release. We don't have enough time to promote it and get you on the road and get you with a booking agent and get everything to where, you know, give you an opportunity to succeed. For that matter, hell, give us an opportunity to succeed on the deal. I didn't mean to jump in there, but
no, not at all.
You know, I mean, and we don't want to make the promise that everybody that walks through the door is going to get the best PR company and the best radio promoter and the best booking agent,
or
the
to
best,
make it.
or because I mean, statistically, not so much.
Well,
you know?
yeah, I mean, well, that's a whole other thing. Like, what is success for your label, for an artist? Like, it's different for everybody. I mean, obviously, Taylor Swift numbers is what everybody wants or thinks they want, but that's not really what's right for every artist.
Well, I mean, a big thing of what we do is artist development. Like, and I don't know if it was ever the intention, but like that's why I respect you guys so much, is that because I know nobody does that anymore. Yeah. If they ever did back in the day, you know. I feel like we're kind of that first step for a lot of people, or like that building block. And I love doing that and helping artists, you know, get those first steps in their career for sure.
That was actually my next question. Are you guys the last stop for these bands, or is there like the thought like, well, you might get bigger than us and that's fine, or we're not cool with that? Or like, what's your view on that particular aspect?
I don't know if we specifically have like a view on it. It kind of just is like everyone is their own project. It's case by case, I guess. I know, especially with like some artists, the goal was to like get you to a certain point, and that was kind of like what y'all were doing before I came on, was so that's get them to a certain point where they can like grow out of us, kind of, you know.
But now that's the beginning. But now, are we getting to a place where, like you were saying, like Dallas can support this sort of thing? Like, I mean, you don't have a lot of like. Is there even any like published? Like I know in New York, Nashville, you're playing a show, like there's people that are just work there, live there, can come in and discover you, whatever that means. But is that starting to happen here yet?
That's a good question.
You
want to grab this one, Courtney? Yeah.
Gosh, I feel like it's hard to say too, post like COVID. It's been so hard to figure out the scene.
I gotta agree with that one, because what we built in 2 stages. It fell completely apart, and nobody came out and checked out shows. And, you know, Trey and I sit and talked about it for a little while. Paul immediately went, y'all are insane. Definitely don't do that. And I'm like, man, I want to leave my chips on the table really bad. This will pass. Okay, none of us knew it. I mean, there was no timeline. Actually, there was originally. It was like, hey, if you guys will hang around the house for the next 2 weeks, this will go away. Turned out to be not 100% true. Now, were there good things? Kinda. You know, let's talk about those PR firms. Let's talk about those radio promoters. Let's talk about, you know, people stuck in their house. We had no competition. I mean, if we put an act out, people went, hey, we're going to play your music. We're definitely going to play, because nobody did. I mean, it was complete flamed out. The Great State Fair of Texas. We're going to talk about those kids for a little while. There was one stage. There was one activity at the State Fair of Texas, and it was our stage. And we booked great acts. The cars went through slowly. We were not on the internet ordering food, so all we got to do is smell it for 24 days and wish we had a corn dog or whatever it was they were cooking. You know, I finally got my family members to go through the line and bring us food. We had the biggest party in the green room you ever saw, because we had 21 corny dogs, and we all sit there and ate for a while. But there were. If you're looking for a silver lining, the silver lining was the competition went home. That was it. We're done. You know, because we all know that right now that the actual money comes from either sync licensing, which we can talk about if you wish, or shows. And if there are no shows, then there is no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. There's not even a rainbow. So we were able to actually provide shows for a bunch of guys that really deserve to be seen in public, be it from a car or, you know. We held up traffic in a huge way. They actually hung around. You know, people wanted to stay and check out shows. But the thing was, they were on a schedule, so they loitered for a long time, and they would see the other end of the line where they were supposed to pick their turkey leg up, and then they would race up and grab their turkey leg after listening to music. So when that changed, we did actually have to evolve with it. So when we evolved with it, we made some other adjustments. Now, we had a cache of really great musicians. I mean, guys like Matt Hillier of 1100 Springs, you know, they tapped the brake. We put out their last record on vinyl, and we put out their only record on vinyl. So I could quit right there and say that I was happy with my legacy. A long time ago, I opened the Dallas Observer, and there was 1100 Springs and Homespun Remedies, my band, playing at the Granada, and the picture right underneath it was the O's. So it was John, and you know, it was. I'm like, well, I'll keep that one in my drawer. And it was such a privilege to play with Matt and company for 1100 Springs. So one day I got to put out that record. We got to put out that record, and then he's like, okay, well, essentially, I want to do this as a solo. This is not really 1100 Springs music. This is my music. I want to do this. So we had a foray straight into some really great artists, and it was almost. I mean, it's not like we didn't play the 1100 Springs card, but he was at Steamboat. He was at every radio station. He was out touring. He was doing his own thing, and he was doing it with great musicians.
Mm-hmm.
Heather Stalling, Max, all these guys are just super iconic, and that was kind of how I don't want to call it a comeback, but everybody sort of woke up and went back to work, and that was what we had in our stable that we could show up with. So it changed a little bit. Some of the budgets, got to. You lose money for 3 years, your budget changes a little bit.
Sure.
So there was a little bit of a dig out process, but I would say if all things considered, we probably have passed where we were before it all sort of went,
Right. Yeah, I mean, I trust me, I shoot concerts all the time that are quote unquote sold out, and I'm like, where is everybody? I mean, I've learned what it means to be sold out. It's not everybody's in the room. We're getting toward the end. I have a couple more questions. First, I know every musician that's listening that's not signed wants to know how you find new talent. Is there an opportunity for somebody to get with you guys?
I do not have an email address. No, I'm kidding.
If you find it, it's not mine, so don't send anything to it.
The same way you get booked at the fair, just reach out to us. Info is wonderful, but if you have a SoundCloud link or something like that, I think that's probably the best.
You're open to submit. Not that you can listen to everything that comes in, but
we do kind of listen to every.
We have a doc that we try to keep up with.
Okay. That's cool.
But yeah, info@statefairrecords.com. Anyone can send there. I mean, one thing to always keep in mind is like timing. Like if we're just booked that year with, several other releases, it's like, I know it's got to be like the most vulnerable thing sending that to a record label. I mean, I watched Nathan do it before, like we knew about State Fair Records and things like that. And it's tough. I know.
Yeah. What's the timeline in the Bible? Just tell them
a year.
There it is.
Like a year before, like you'd even hear something that was submitted.
Go ahead.
No, just like the release timeline. You mean like if they have music ready to go?
If they send it and we love it and it's more or less ready, it still takes
a year,
an enormous amount of time.
Yeah.
Listen, if you don't lay the foundation, man, the house is going to shift and fall over.
I mean, let me just say to any musician that's impatient, if you send your stuff out and someone like State Fair likes it, wait. Don't just feel like you have to get like
honestly, follow-ups help too. Like,
okay, that's good to know.
I mean, the more artists like are persistent, I mean, not an,
yeah, we're not encouraging
kind of in between like annoying and persistent.
Yeah, like, that's a fine balance.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But, there is a fine line and there's like a classy way to do it. I don't know.
Sure. No, for sure.
But that does help. I'm like, okay, I should reply to this person.
Yeah,
like
that's the third
they
one
really
you feel
care.
guilty,
Like
maybe or something.
I mean, we're always looking for something unique.
Tenacity is actually sort of built into the job, and actual penchant to travel. I mean, a lot of people don't realize it's great. There are amazing musicians right now standing in their garage playing music, and that's a great place for them because if you're looking at 220 days on the road and waking up in the morning trying to figure out what town you're in, if you're not geared for that, this is a wrong job for you.
Yeah.
And it is a job.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah,
That's it.
I'm clear that I will not be going on tour with anyone. I'm like not into that idea. Good luck. Have fun. You need to do it. I'm not going to be there. Last question. What is the future for State Fair Records?
You got this one?
We can both answer. We got time.
Oh boy. I don't know.
We can give me the
definitely,
immediate and then the far.
Yeah. I mean, the fair is always, one of our main priorities.
You're
and
already in the fair now, or
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Starting to program and like think about it. And
is that something that a band could submit and
totally
okay.
And I love getting those. Like I pretty much make a mental/physical list on my phone throughout the year of just like bands that I want to like think about potentially booking for the fair.
Sure.
And then I'll like, once we have like our initial meeting with the fair, what they're looking for from the year, then, you know, we start plugging in and putting the pieces together. But yeah, I love when people reach out wanting to play. And I mean, I love it, but I also feel bad because, you know, there's only
so many slots,
48 slots or whatever it may be. And I would love to get everyone out there. But it's just not possible.
Sure.
And like building that is really tough, but you know.
Yeah, please.
Okay, those 48 slots, those are incredibly important 48 slots. We started, I like it's already started. Our relationship with the Great State Fair of Texas actually goes on and we're going to expand on that. I think we're going to do some of our own show promotion and things like that. But I got to tell you, man, the money is in sync licenses. And we started a thing called the Singles Club, which is totally not what it sounds like. It is, we're going to put out singles and we're going to do the right type of contract that we can actually take them to market and get them, you know, on TV, video games come to mind. You know, it doesn't really matter what it is. And if we could actually dovetail those things together where the artist, or at least a large portion of the artists that are going to be doing the state fair, are going to be people that are actually touring. We're not actually putting a full album out for them because that actually chews up tons of bunches of time, but we're going to put out very viable, very, very licensable material for them. That is one of the ways that we can do chunks with the artist. I mean, we put out, and I'm gonna sing John Dufalo's praises, but this was John, but it was a Google Pixel phone sync license, and it had a dollar figure attached to it that kind of makes it worth your time to do singles that people are going to pick up on. And, you know, we're working more and more with, you know, I don't want to tip my hand too far and say whoever, but there's at least, I think, about 7 right now companies that we're working with on a regular basis. I'll pick on the Richards Group. They're here in town. Well, the Richards Group, God bless those guys, you know, they are always looking for that type of music. And I don't think we're going to get trumped by AI. I don't think that we're going to be usurped by that, because if you dovetail all these things together and they're touring, they're recording, you know, they're creating new music, because you can do boutique music. There's nothing wrong with that. And we are in a position to get that in front of the right people. That could be very good for the artist and the rest of the material that they want to put out. That could be very good for us because we got to make money. I mean, all of us, you know, you can tell I'm a pretty skinny guy, man. You know what I mean? It's I gotta eat here.
Yeah.
So
you're doing all this for money. That's been clear from the beginning.
I will say Scott has not taken a dime.
Okay, well there you go. There you go.
I do it for love.
Yeah. Well, it does show. Like if you were doing it for money, it would not look like this. Honestly, if that was your main goal.
I don't even know why Scott still does it, but I'm very thankful that you do.
It may be a mental or emotional deficiency, but I'm just going to hang in there and continue doing what we're doing. But I will say this, that the 0.004 cents that you get paid for a stream is incalculable. I have strong math skills. Getting paid for doing something like Yellowstone, which I know that guy and I know what they paid him, it's certainly worth your time.
Sure.
To consider changing the format. I mean, I love that there's a place in this building where you can make a 78 RPM record. You know, that's amazing.
Right.
That's where that 22 minutes came from. You know, that's where the time that is a record came from.
Oh, yeah.
But at the end of the day, that is a very lovely, nostalgic way to listen to music. But if you got to make a living doing this, it really needs a bigger audience really super fast. So, I mean, let's look at Netflix. Let's look at Hulu. Let's look at, and again, if you've got an idea and it'll go in a game, I'll listen to your idea for damn sure. And I know exactly who to pitch it to.
Wow.
So,
okay.
I do think that kind of sums up the future, though, is like focusing on the fair, focusing on Singles Club, and then maybe 1 or 2 albums a year, something like that. But I mean, always the goal forever is to continue building the scene and supporting artists.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, for one, I'm glad that you're doing, I know a lot of artists are glad you're doing it. And, thanks for coming down and talking about what you do.
You're so welcome. Unbelievable, man. Thank you for having us. This has been a delight, a true pleasure.
Yeah, it's been great. And we will continue to have State Fair artists on. I have a whole list that I'll be talking to you about after.
Okay.
All right. Thanks again, guys. I'd like to thank Scott and Courtney for joining us. State Fair Records is pretty easy to find, but we'll have the links in the show notes. Opening theme song, Salim Nurala, Unstoppable, and the closing theme song, Electric Ants, The Place to Be. Thank you to the Mullen & Mullen Music Project for supporting this podcast. We'd also like to thank the Deep Ellum Community Center for letting us record there. You can catch the Dallas Famous podcast every Sunday at 1 o'clock on Deep Ellum Radio, and then Wednesday on all the podcast platforms. Please like, subscribe, enjoy, share, all the good things. We'll see you next time.